Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give it a couple minutes for people to transition from the waiting room into the main webinar space. It is 1:02, so I think we can probably get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bethany Quinn. I am president of Golden Shovel Agency. Typically, I am joined by Nathan Hansen on our PR and communications team, but many of our team is taking this week off, which is great. Spend some time with their family and friends. So you get me today, just me. But it was going to be a good one. I have a lot of great information to share with all of you. This is going to be recorded, so you are going to get a follow-up from Nathan with the recording. As I mentioned, he's on vacation this week, so you might not get it until next week, but it is coming. Also, if you have any questions or anything you want to add to the conversation, feel free to leave a chat. And at the end of the presentation, I will open that up and we'll review what everyone had to say or any questions that you wanted to ask. So today we are going to talk about engaged communities and how to build support for economic development. So first of all, why are we at Golden Shovel the right people to talk about this? Well, economic development is all that we do. We are an economic development strategy and communications firm. We have been working exclusively in the economic development space for over 17 years, and we have over 400 clients in 43 states. In addition to that, every year I have been conducting a survey of economic developers all over the country. If you're not on that list, I'd love for you to be included next year because I want to hear everyone's thoughts. And we got a lot of data over the last year and a half or so about what's happening on the ground in communities and how people are really struggling to get buy-in for economic development organizations. And obviously the ones that have gotten buy-in and gotten community support, they're doing incredibly well. A lot of them are having successful fundraising campaigns and really moving the needle for their community. So we knew that it was an important issue, and a lot of you through that survey and conversations asked us to share some insights on what you could do to get more of your community behind your mission. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Also, Golden Shovel Agency has won a lot of awards for our work with clients, and we speak all over the country at conferences. Okay, so let's get started and get into the meat of why we're here today. So talk about building knowledge, building trust, and building buy-in in your community. So let's put the elephant in the room on the table to start, and let's just be real, guys. Nobody knows what economic development is. I work with so many incredible organizations and leaders throughout the country, and oftentimes even board members don't fully understand what it is that you guys do. It's a complex industry. There's so many moving parts, and a lot of economic development, though it creates a visible impact, the work that goes in behind the scenes to create that impact more often than not goes unnoticed. So because of that, it falls on you, it falls on us as your advocate and your support to really share the word, to talk about economic development, to build that knowledge base so that people in your community understand what your organization does, why it matters, and how it benefits them. And that's the key that often doesn't happen, is building that bridge so they understand that the work that you're doing in 2026 is going to somehow positively impact their business, their family, their neighborhood. And doing that helps to build trust in the organization so that you can have that buy-in and you can have that support. But if you don't build that bridge, if you don't make it clear what economic development is, and you don't connect it to their life, to their business, then unfortunately, we've seen this too many times. What ends up happening is the news story or the social media post carries the day. And those are not always positive, and they certainly don't capture fully the incredible and hard work that you're doing on a daily basis. We see it though, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for your communities. So when we talk about the survey that we conducted, you can see here 53% of the economic development professionals that we surveyed said that getting community support was their most needed resource. Most needed. So obviously, we all need money to run our organizations, right? You need to have sites for development. You need to have good policy behind you. You need to have workforce solutions. There's a lot that you need, but 53% said that getting community support was more important than anything else. And that makes sense because if you have the community behind you, then you have partners that are going to roll up their sleeves and help you to solve those other challenges. You have people that are going to be willing to invest in your organization and to invest in your program of work. So, really, this community support is truly the baseline for economic development success. And you can see on the flip side that 73% of Americans say their community is overbuilt or fine as is. So that's a problem, right? Is there's a big portion of our community residents who believe they don't need economic development. So that education piece becomes even more critical. And that's where we got this additional statistic from all of you that 81.3% of economic development professionals say residents don't understand what they do. For those who know me, who've been in meetings with me and all these webinars, you know that I have a lot of kids. And the amount of times I've had to explain economic development to them, even as they get older and get into college, it's enormous. It's just complicated, right? So we have to try to make it simple. And we're going to share some ideas with you on how you can do that today. So really, economic development, you know why you do it, but we need to make sure people understand that the economy is not just what the Federal Reserve deals with, right? It's not just the jobs reports that come out and all of that data, but the economy, when it's strong, it's creating opportunities for them. It is creating opportunities for them to have a better job, increase wages, and lower taxes by spreading the burden. So we need to focus on those impact analysis. And one of the things that I definitely also want to encourage you to do today is to share the data as you have it and to make sure you're updating your members, investors, and community members regularly on your program of work. So a lot of our clients do things like produce an annual report and have an annual meeting where they're able to vocalize and share the excitement and the momentum, but they're also able to put it in writing so anyone can find it. And when you're putting an annual report together, make sure that you're also breaking it into small pieces that you can share on social media, that you can put in the news or blog section of your website, because a lot of people won't read a full report, but they're still going to be excited about the information there. And you can tease that out and you can publish it in just bite-sized bits throughout the year, which saves you and your team time, right? Because you're not having to create content and updates from scratch. You're just sharing the same information in ways that's small enough for people to actually digest it. Another thing that you can do is you can also use dashboards. So we help to produce dashboards work with a lot of software partners if that's something you really want. Where you can display the impact of your work in a numerical sense and use infographics and things like that to make it clear of how the organization is spending its time and its resources and what that means for the community in regards to impact that can be quantified using numerical data. But of course, you got to tell stories to go with it because it's one thing to say that we were able to raise the average wage by $3 in our community. I mean, that would be incredible, right? But what does that actually mean for someone who has their kids in the local school, right? What are they able to do because they have that increase in wage? What does that look like on the ground? What did that mean for somebody who was starting their career that they were able to get a higher paying job? Were they able to buy a house? Were they able to go on vacation? We need to start working at personalizing these things. We work with a group of workforce professionals in Louisiana, for example, and some of those conversations about taking people from an entry-level service job to a job where they're able to have their own apartment, they're able to have their own vehicle, they're able to truly start building a life for themselves. Those are the type of transformative moments that if we can work with our partners to capture, we're going to do a better job of connecting the dots to why economic development and our daily work matters. So you might not have all those stories, but there's a really good chance that your partners do. So we encourage you to engage them. But at the very beginning, you got to have a baseline. You need to know where you're at in your community. What support is there for economic development today? What do they think that you do today? Does anyone even know that you exist today? We need to find that out. So we really recommend that you start before you create a plan by finding out what is the level of awareness, what is the level of support for your organization, what do your residents care about? What's important to them? What are their pain points? Because those are the things, obviously, that you're working to help solve. But if they tell you what those are in their own words, when you go to report on it later, you should use their own words to report on it. We get sometimes a little bit caught up in being too serious in our communication, but it's okay to use common terms if that's what your residents are using when reporting on the information. And of course, you need to find out what the best way to engage with residents is. There are communities where they love their email newsletters. There's others where if you stop sending them something in the mail, they'd be upset. And there's some communities where you better focus on social media. It's really community specific. A lot of times it's demographic specific, but you should be asking to make sure you get the information in their hands. Now, how are you going to get the answers to these questions without hiring someone onto your staff, right? Because it's a big ask to say, hey, we got to get a baseline. You're probably completely busy already. So why don't we start by using data tools? Let's use technology to help us out. So we recommend starting with a survey. So you can begin to get clear data of public opinion and trust for your organization by running a survey on social media, for example. Social media is a great place to run surveys. Use Facebook, use LinkedIn. You can even pay to boost the survey so it gets in front of more people. You can target it geographically. We run surveys all the time. And I'll tell you that the social media surveys, they tend to do incredibly well just because they're so easy for people to access and get in front of. And you can also, of course, run your surveys via an email list. That's very common practice for us. Some of your partners that will have a good email list would include the chamber, for example, when you're trying to survey business leaders or people connected to businesses. But of course, all of your partners have their own distribution lists. And if you have a digital survey, they may not give you that list, but you could give them the link and you could give them the paragraph of text that you want them to say, and they could distribute it on your behalf to make sure the survey gets in front of more people in your community. And if you're not sure of what questions to ask on your survey, obviously Golden Shovel can help you. But if you want to do it on your own, AI is a good place to start. There are AI tools that can help you to generate questions and even help you to review the data to uncover themes. I love looking at data. I really do. And I love looking at and reading people's specific answers just because I feel like I gained so much insight just by hearing how people communicate. But not everyone has the time or interest in reading, 200 survey responses to 50 questions. It's a lot. So in that case, AI is fantastic. And the ability to use something like a Google form where you can have AI auto-generate some themes and recaps for you to each question, that can save you a lot of time. And then if you get curious and you want to dig into the responses more, you can. You have the raw data available, but at a glance, you're still able to get an idea of the overarching theme of how people are responding. So I recommend using those. And Google Forms is a great tool. MailChimp is a great tool for sending surveys out as well. And of course, don't forget to publish yours on social media. In addition, there are ways to conduct surveys where people can respond via video. Those are very interesting tools, and text surveys, both of which have a higher response rate and can be really good when you're trying to engage the overall community, not necessarily people that are in the business space. We also recommend that you show up face to face, that you have stakeholder meetings. This is so critical. It's such a fantastic way to make sure that people feel like their voice is heard. And again, straight talk, you're going to get that from me. There's always going to be people in your community that feel upset because they don't know what's going on, or they feel like they don't have a seat at the table. And those people are the ones that are most likely to come after you online and are going to share a lot of incorrect information because they were upset they weren't at the table to begin with. And so if you have these in-person stakeholder events and you're inviting the entire community to them, like a town hall style event or a meet and greet breakfast event, you are able to kind of squash some of that because the people who want a seat are most likely to show up. And even if they get into a conversation with you that's negative, it is 1 million times better for you to have that conversation face to face than for them to start posting and sharing things on social media that good chance isn't going to be true and can be found by prospects, by businesses you're trying to get to invest in the community, by talent you want to move to your community later on. It's just really good idea to get in front of people and try to move those conversations offline. So at Golden Shovel, we do help communities to conduct in-person stakeholder engagement. Here's some pictures from our team. This is in Fort Bend County in Texas. Here we are. This was a breakfast event, a breakfast stop-in event in Bloomington. So again, people were able to just drop by and have conversations. This was a business summit in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. So there's lots of ways to do it. You can host small group meetings. Again, your partners can set those up for you and invite people in their network. That's great because you can use their facility and they're in charge of, making sure people come, right? They're promoting it for you. Or you can have those big town hall style events. But either way, I recommend that if you haven't done it recently, that you get back out there in person and have events so people can come to you because it also maximizes your time versus you going directly to them. And again, here we are with the town hall style meetings. Again, whoever's the one presenting, you got to have some tough skin. So if you're looking at people on your team, you got to consider whoever's the one that's up there on the stage. They need to be somebody who is willing and okay with taking the criticism because it is going to come. And again, it's just working through it so you can get to the other side and share factual information to dispel some of those rumors. But let's talk about the surveys again. I wanted to just give an example of a community who did this very well. Westfield, Indiana, they used a combination of surveys and in-person interviews to get insights on how residents view the city and what they wanted. And that really helped to guide their work because they heard directly from folks. And then, of course, if you're able to tailor what you're doing in response, people feel heard. And that naturally is going to earn trust. It doesn't mean you're able to do everything that the community members are asking, but if you're reporting on it, like I mentioned earlier, and saying, hey, these are the top 10 things the community wanted, we have a staff of 3. We can't do them all every year, but this year we're going to do the number 1 priority. You're building trust. And you're also letting the community know that you have limited bandwidth. So if they want you to do more of those priorities, then it creates an opportunity for conversations around getting more financial support from interested community members. David Brock at Westfield said there were some things where we thought we understood people's perspectives, but the surveys and interviews told us something different. And that is one of the biggest reasons to do this, because you may feel like you have a good pulse on the community and you may be 80% there, but there could be things that you just don't know. And operating in the dark isn't going to help you, and it's certainly not going to earn community trust. So taking the time to do this step and establish the baseline early on will be very valuable for you later and help with your reporting. We also recommend that you leverage social media as a listening tool. So maybe you've tried surveys and they haven't been as effective as you want. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try again, but you can also do searches and start trying to hear what people are saying online about your organization and about your community. Type it into chat, type it into Claude, because you know that if you're not aware, they pull from Reddit, for example. So if people are talking about your community on Reddit, that information is going to come into AI. So that's a great place to start your search. But of course, just going onto social media and doing a search on your own and reading people's comments is going to give you some important insight and help you to identify where people have concerns. One of the things that we have been able to plug into websites that can also help is a tool called Lead Forensics. What it does is it's able to track who specifically is visiting your site and what pages, where they're going. So it takes Google Analytics to a whole new level. And that can be really useful for seeing what's important to people within your community and what their concerns might be, especially since you can see if they're coming from a particular business. So if you're very concerned about your local businesses, this can be a good tool for you. And as I mentioned, if you need help with this, Golden Shovel Agency does a lot of stakeholder engagement work, helps to identify key partnerships, identify those opportunities and barriers. All right, but let's talk about once you have the baseline, you need to start talking to folks. You need a communication plan, right? Because that's how you're going to get the buy-in. First, you know what they care about. You can use their words to articulate what they care about, but now you need to let them know you heard them. So I put this in bold letters because I need to express this so strongly. Don't be afraid. This is the biggest piece of pushback that our team gets from economic developers across the country. We have a full, if you don't work with us, just background, we obviously do develop and build websites and create custom content and social media posts and videos and everything you need to market your community. But our team will very often make recommendations like, hey, this is a really cool story. I can't believe you have this program, or you were out doing this last month. Let's talk about it, right? Let's share that information. And a lot of economic developers don't do it because they're scared. They're scared of what pushback they're going to get from community members, that they might get nasty comments online. I'm actually going to show you an example later of one of our clients who has had a really successful program, who was worried about this at first, did not want to do anything online, did not want to communicate what was happening very much because of that concern. And you know what? He was right. It happened. Right? He got nasty responses online. Initially, the trolls came out, the rumors came out, and there was time that had to go into addressing all of those rumors and fact checking, right? Saying, well, no, this is not actually correct. Here, let me give you the right information. But what happened is that even at the beginning, and we see this all the time, people will challenge your facts. They'll challenge your story, but eventually they run out of steam, because if you engage with people and you provide them with enough information and you're willing to continue to have that conversation, eventually the people that are going to have those concerns, you're going to talk to them so much that they just don't need to bring it up anymore. And now you're able to actually have positive interactions with people in your community who do care, who do want to participate, who do want to support you. So I wish that I could say there was a way for you to promote economic development without going through that pain, but there just isn't. So you are going to have to be prepared that if you start an awareness campaign, you're probably going to have a couple months of just needing to clarify a lot and clear up some rumors. But again, that's okay, because it will stop. And at the end, you're going to be left with people who trust you, because they'll see that you're not trying to hide anything, that economic development is a benevolent industry trying to help, right? Not someone who's trying to do shady deals behind the scenes, like the rumors might suggest. So that's critical for building trust, and I encourage you guys to stick with it. So let's talk about clearing up those gaps in understanding. So the way we do that is by constant communication. So you also need to remember that you may have put out a video, a social post, an article talking about, say, an incentive program 6 months ago. That doesn't mean that everyone in your community has seen it. So you need to make sure that when it comes to these really key and pressing issues, you're communicating frequently enough that you're in front of people and they're going to be able to see it, and don't make that assumption like, oh, we already did that. That's just not enough, because I guarantee you most people didn't come across it. So it does require repeating yourself quite a bit, but that's okay, right? As long as you have a communication plan for how to do that. So it really is an ongoing process, and we consider really a content plan where you're putting out information monthly to be the minimum that you need to communicate in regards to what you're doing and kind of give that behind the scenes look. So some of the ways that we recommend you do that is social media, website content, and dynamic videos. I'm going to go through some of those examples, but it's really important that you are using all three because people will communicate and look at what you're putting out in different ways, right? People have preferences. If you have an email newsletter, that can also be really useful, but typically the people who subscribe to that are going to be more of your supporters and community partners. So in that case, you need to look at your email newsletter as a way to empower them with information, knowing that they're an audience who's already comfortable with you, right? It's not like they're people who just don't know what you do. So when you're creating this content, you need to make sure that you are leading with outcomes. So lead with results as much as you can, and then you can explain the process that went into it. But you got to talk about the outcomes first. And that way you can share the real world impact of your work, which is incredible, rather than it feeling like it's too nebulous and people can't grasp it. So I'm going to play this example video, and I recommend that these are the types of just short videos that you can put together and use to talk about what you do.
Carrying the cost of daily life can feel like a constant heavy weight. Between the price of a home and the rising cost of goods, it takes effort just to stay balanced. Running a community works the same way. Without strong businesses, the entire bill for services is divided among the people living there. Economic development brings businesses to the other side of the scale, creating a partner that shares the load. When the scale is balanced, the individual share of the bill goes down, leaving more room in your budget for a better quality of life.
So really, it's whether it's a cartoon sketch video or whether it's you just speaking, recording it on Zoom, or it's something like this. You should be breaking down your work in a way that's tangible, bite-sized, and people can understand. And of course, your surveys and your interviews are going to give you a lot of insight into where those gray areas might be. On social media, one of the things that we recommend doing and has been really successful for economic developers is running an educational campaign of did you know, right? It's instead of assuming people know what you do, break it down. So in Emporia, one of their did you knows here on the screen is did you know that Emporia supports Spanish speaking entrepreneurs through the, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but the Mi Negocio Academy. So that's something most people probably didn't know. But there's a lot of things that you do every day that feel so commonplace to you that people probably have literally no idea. And so if you were to look at the job description of every single person on your team and then take it from technical speak to what somebody would just understand in real life, you could probably come up with 100 social media posts for a year about, did you know this is what we're doing in the community? Did you know this is what we're doing to help you? And then obviously on social, you want to make sure the image is reflecting that. So here in Emporia, they're working on housing. I'm sure most of you are, right? But a lot of people don't realize that economic developers are behind the scenes trying to get sites ready for housing development, trying to recruit developers, trying to put incentives together to make home ownership affordable. I would take a bet that most people in your community don't know you're doing that, even if you are, and even if you're doing a great job. So we got to talk about it. Again, social media can be used to celebrate the success, right? Here in Norfolk, we got our golden shovels out. Love this. This is such a beautiful family here, ready to break ground on their new venture. So we want to make sure we're sharing the good news too. And then you can see here the Leavenworth County Port Authority, they're focused on the data. But it's really important to know, wow, the Port Authority helped to create 400 jobs and 558 million in new growth. That's a really important statistic that, again, most people hear the Port Authority, they're not going to have any idea that the Port Authority is involved in creating jobs and helping to grow the community. So we need to tell them, and using social media is a good way to do that. We can also use social media to address the big issues. So I love this in Leavenworth. Again, where do your tax dollars go? Let's talk about it. That's somebody who's willing to have a hard conversation. Let's talk about taxes. Because most people in your community, if they're talking to you about taxes, they're not happy, right? But the fact that you can have that conversation helps to explain what work you're doing to try to make sure the tax burden is spread out and not overburdening any one category of person. So important to have those conversations. Here in Auburn, comfortable commutes. So anyone who's familiar with the Seattle-Tacoma metropolitan area knows that traffic can be really horrendous. This is a touchy subject, but again, they're using social media to let's get in front of it. Let's make it really clear what we have to offer that's going to be getting you off the road, so you don't have to sit there for an hour and a half. So in other words, don't use social media just for the fun stuff. Be willing to engage with people on social media about the difficult things too. And then tell stories of impact and use your longer form articles on your website and your blogs as a way to dig a little bit deeper. I wanted to give this example from the Greater Springfield Partnership because this isn't just one article, but it's a series of articles that helps to explain what they're doing. So talking about the highest gains for employment in Ohio since the pandemic. So that's a great stat, but what are they doing to actually make that happen? And so then they're digging into it. So talking about what's happening at the high school that's contributing to preparing workers to enter jobs in the area. And then they're talking about they're bridging the gap between employers and talent with their job fairs. And these are just three of the articles they have that are all interrelated and all helping to tell that same story, which then they're also promoting on social media. So what it does is it helps to make sure that people who really want to have deeper level information, they can see your social media post, they can click through to your website, they can read the article, and then ideally your articles are interlinked so people who want more information can keep going. And in the best world, everything you have online is answering their questions. So people get to you after they have some accurate baseline information. And then, of course, creating that communication plan requires consistency. I told you about the client who at first was worried about social media. So Greg Kindle in Wyandotte County. Greg is an incredible economic developer who has had massive success. You're going to see a video highlighting some of those stats here in a second. But again, he was concerned that it would be a lot of negative stuff online, but he has now focused, I believe it's 3 years of educating the community, and it's really paid off because their buy-in is very high. Their community support is very high. And one of Greg's thoughts I wanted to share with you today is that residents won't necessarily understand numbers on their own. So again, you can put together great reports. That doesn't mean they're going to read them, and it doesn't mean they're going to understand what it means for them and for their business. So to reach the broader audience, Greg says, you have to turn numbers into a story that make the situation personal. I talked about the person who was able to get into their own place with their own vehicle and be able to support their family because of a new job, a better job, workforce training they received. And that's a great story. Or an entrepreneur, if you have a revolving loan fund, you shouldn't just be talking about the money that you've given out to the revolving loan fund. You should be touring the business, even as with your iPhone, to record what they did with the money and how that's impacted the business, and have the owner and one of their employees be recorded or written up in an article where they can share what that impact meant for them and for their life and for their future in the community. We need to take it from numbers to personal. I did not put this video in here, and I should have, but we did a campaign several years ago in Roseville, Minnesota, where we actually were on site and helping small businesses to get online and to get customers and recover post-pandemic. And there was a gentleman who came and spoke to the council, and it moved me so incredibly because he said that they were going to shut their business down. They'd been there for 30 years. They were a staple in their community, but they were losing customers. They were losing business, and they didn't know how they were going to recover. And because of the community's program and the support they received, they not only recovered, they didn't just keep their business open, they also were expanding their hours of operation. And to hear it spoken from this small business owner and the passion they felt because they were such a part of this community and wanted to stay there, there's nothing you can do as an economic developer that can replace their passion. You just can't. So getting that on video and sharing those stories, now all of a sudden, when you say, hey, we have a revolving loan fund, we were able to help this entrepreneur recover from a natural disaster or to grow and expand. And you hear their passion come through, all of a sudden people are going to realize, oh, wow, this organization, this economic developer helped my neighbor, helped the business that I like to take my family to, every Sunday, whatever it might be. So we got to make things personal. And we also need to make things fun, right? Economic development, it's numbers, it's sites, it's projects. But you know what? We capture attention when things are fun. And you guys are going to be able to see this video as a couple years old when you watch it. But here's an example of how you can do that. All right, so this video was released right after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. If you're not a Chiefs fan, sorry, but it's their community and it worked really well because everyone was talking about the Super Bowl, and so they were able to tie it in and it got a lot of views. And now people who would not have been looking at the economic impact of the economic development organization were, because we pulled them in with that Super Bowl shot. Another thing you can do is you can leverage holidays to get people's attention. Again, we know economic development does not capture attention right away, so let's use things that do. And that was a little TikTok video. And by the way, these are all different levels of production quality, so you can pick what works for you and for your budget. This holiday post or this holiday video, actually, our team created these really cool 3D animations. And this video was shared all over the county because it was just so unique. But again, people know who the organization is now, if they didn't already. All right. I didn't make you watch all the way to the end, but you can just see it's having fun, right? The point is that if there's something happening in the community or, culturally like a holiday that people are going to be excited about anyway, just tie into it because they're already looking for content around those things. And now you can obviously promote your good work. I also wanted to, I'm not going to show you one of these, but just recommend that you continue to incorporate virtual reality into the promotion of what you're doing, just because the younger generation especially is very interested in virtual. It is going to become more and more a part of everyday life. So using virtual reality to showcase your community, showcase your initiatives and the work you're doing to make the community a better place for everyone can be a good idea. All right, and then let's talk about regionalism. So for many of you, no matter how great your community is, there's a good chance that you're working with neighboring communities as well. We see this a lot, especially when it comes to sharing educational resources. You may have a technical college, but your neighboring county may have a university, for example. And so using a regional approach to sharing information on what economic development is doing to improve everyone's quality of life and also improve the business climate can be a really good idea. It can also help to strengthen your position by demonstrating that you're not doing this in isolation. So tying yourself to a university, to a technical college, to the local hospital. Organizations that are naturally very respected in your community helps to demonstrate to residents who are uncertain about the value of economic development that organizations they trust and they value and they believe in you. They're partnering with you because they know the work you're doing is important. So getting that validation can be really important. And if you don't have a partner page on your website, you may want to consider it, or even adding partner logos to the footer of your website, or even creating social media posts where you have partner logos talking about who you work with and who is helping to support economic development. Can be a good thing to do. All right. And we also recommend that when you look at partners, you help to work to determine if there's any shared goals, if there's gaps that you guys aren't closing right now, or if there's duplication. Because sometimes the lack of community support can come from residents and sometimes even your investors feeling like there's overlap in mission and overlap in programs. So for the past for the past over 11 years, I guess, that I've been at Golden Shovel, I have seen consolidations, right? Where organizations are getting wrapped up into one. And sometimes that's for really positive things, right? Sometimes the mission is very clearly delineated and there's more funding coming in, and that's a good reason for that to happen. But there's other instances that we have observed where organizations are forced to consolidate because investors and residents just feel like everyone's doing the same thing, and why would I give to three organizations who are doing something similar? So these partner conversations that you have are important for also determining if there is any overlap in reality, or if there's any overlap in perception. How do you stop that? And how do you make it clear to the community that the mission that you are focused on is uniquely yours, that you are the one who is moving the needle in this area while a partner is moving it in a different area? That can help to protect your investor relationships in particular. And we also recommend that your partners include community organizations like nonprofits when possible. Again, any organization in your community who already has support, who already has buy-in and trust, if they can endorse you, demonstrate they support you and believe in your mission, the people who believe in them may also transfer some of that trust your way. All right, we want to talk about, again, example of impact. So in Western Nebraska, TCD, they were supporting two cities and now they're engaging an entire region. And that has helped them to demonstrate impact at even a very small scale. So they helped a town of just 800 secure a development grant. And for that town, $100,000 development grant for 800 people. I mean, that's huge. That is community changing. That's transformative. And so that's the type of way that you can gain additional support, not just from your core member base, but also the surrounding communities, and maybe just also broaden the amount of people who are willing to support your organization and invest in your organization. Jordan Dietrich, he explained that we try to be clear that our goal was to offer resources and support and not consume their economic development efforts. And that's exactly what they've been able to do. So they've been able to get more buy-in by going alongside and augmenting what's already happening in the community by, offering their technical expertise that might not be found at the smaller local level. So again, it's what makes us different. As an economic developer, you can bring technical expertise and help to do things like secure grants or support infrastructure development and investment that maybe a local chamber who's handling economic development can't. So making sure that those things are clear can help you to win more support. In Fort Bend County, Texas, this is one of the largest counties in the country, and they have cities that very often have their own team of economic developers who, are all working to do a great job for their community. But at the county level, they wanted to make sure that they could provide more holistic level support, that there was a more singular vision that would drive county growth, and that everyone be working in a way that would benefit the entire county and that ecosystem, to avoid any type of, I guess, I'm not going to find the best word for it, guys, so I'm just not going to try. But you know what I'm saying? They wanted to try to make sure everybody was working together and moving in the same direction. So we actually went out and did a lot of stakeholder engagement for them and had fantastic feedback. And a lot of the local cities made comments like, hey, this is the first time we feel like the county is really supporting us. And we're excited to work together with you. And we believe that they're going to achieve even greater things because now, at all levels in economic development, everyone's working together. So sometimes that community buy-in and support you need is from other leaders as well, not just your general residents and business community. All right, so let's talk about engaging residents to boost outreach so that more people are hearing about the good things you're doing. So we really recommend that you get a group of enthusiastic residents and business leaders to be your ambassadors, your community ambassadors. So again, think about it this way. If you are talking about a great new program that you launched and it's going to help small businesses throughout your community, some people are going to say, yes, that's wonderful. But if you also have a couple small business owners who have participated with you in maybe designing the program, given feedback on the program, to come out and say, hey, I worked with the economic development organization, gave them my ideas. I'm so excited for this to be in our community. I encourage all other small business owners to work with the EDO like I am. That is a totally different scenario because now you have an advocate who is helping to spread the word about the great things that you are doing. And people are going to believe them because they already have a relationship with them. And for your small business leaders, your nonprofit leaders, your education leaders, and your local residents who, just happen to be more social. They have a lot of friends. When they talk about what you're doing, people are going to believe them. They're going to buy in a lot more easily or readily than if you're just talking about it yourself. So these ambassadors are really important. And once you have that list of people who are going to help you spread the word, we encourage that you definitely communicate with them at least monthly. And you got to make it so easy, right? You need to be texting them, hey, here's a link to this social media post. Could you please share it with your comments? Or sending them on email. Hey, here's this message that we're putting out to the community. If anyone asks you about this new program or this incentive or this business coming to town, here's some talking points for you. Could you also direct them back to our press release? So you need to engage them and make it easy. Don't just ask people to be your ambassador and advocate and then expect them to come to your website or follow you on social media and do these things automatically. So make a calendar reminder for yourself to reach out to them. We also recommend that you need to make it fun, right? If people are going to work with you and support you, have a lunch, twice a year, or invite them all out to a local business for happy hour or for coffee and donuts, whatever it is, to where they're also networking with each other and they're able to have FaceTime with you in a really just fun and easy environment. That also lets you answer their questions because if they are an ambassador, they're going to be asked questions on your behalf, and you want to make sure they have the answers and the resources they need. We also recommend recording a podcast. So the 17 County podcast, if you guys want to have an example of just a killer economic development podcast, somebody who's absolutely hitting it out of the park, you've got to check this out. So Lisa Hurley, for those who don't know her, incredible economic developer in York County, Nebraska. This is the brainchild of her and her team, and they have had their podcast heard now by over 38,000 times by people in over 26 countries. And they have tangible results. They can actually point back to this podcast from people even moving to their community after listening to it, businesses getting more help and support after listening to it. So it's been really, really powerful tool for them, and they're producing this themselves. So go check it out. Go give it a listen. 17 County podcast. But this is a really good way for you to get community buy-in and support because you could have different partners on to talk about what they're doing and how you're working together. Anytime that you have a new business coming to town, they could be a guest and they could talk about what they're doing. If you have a workforce initiative or anything at all, you can talk about it on the podcast and you can have these longer conversations and really answer questions that you think that your audience may want to hear. And if you're producing them on a regular cadence, again, you're building trust because you're making it clear that you have everything to share. You are an open book, and you can even have a way for people to submit requests for topics that they want covered to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. And they're recorded, right? So then later on, somebody can go and find the answer by listening to one of your previous podcasts. Again, make sure that you host regular community meetings. They need to be done at least annually. This is an example here, semi-annually if you can, but at least once a year, have an open community meeting. I wanted to give a spotlight here on just an incredible example of getting buy-in and community support. So Mike Espiritu with Roswell Chavez County, he talked about this on a recent webinar. Some of you may have attended it, but they were able to land the Reno Air Races, which has now been renamed the National Championship Air Races, to Roswell, which was really an incredible feat. Because if you haven't heard this story from Mike, they don't even have the number of hotel rooms to accommodate everyone who's coming into town. They don't have the population of workforce to run all of the vendor booths. So they can't do this without regionalism, and they can't do it without community volunteers. And they were able to get so much excitement and enthusiasm from the community by making it really clear from day one what they were trying to do with this recruitment, how it would benefit the community, that they are able to run the air races with mostly volunteer team. And what's happened is the local nonprofits actually have members of their organization who come and volunteer to do things like tickets and parking and crowd control, work vendor booths, different things like that, and they're able to get a donation to their nonprofit at the end of the event because of the revenue that's being generated. That's cool, and that's out of the box to think, hey, you can get nonprofits like the Boy Scouts to volunteer for a donation, and everyone's excited because they're helping to put the community on the map while also benefiting their nonprofit. So Mike's had a lot of really cool ideas and success in bringing the community together and getting that buy-in to make this show a success. All right. And again, the community building never stops. So just to recap, lay the foundation, make structural improvements to communicate clearly and effectively. Plan your content for at least a year to make sure it's going out weekly and doesn't stop, right? You got to keep communicating. And then review comments, respond to them, and revise your strategy to make sure you continue to educate folks. Now, this, of course, was a short webinar in comparison to what is actually in the white paper and the recommendations and best practices there. So I recommend that you get your phone out and scan this QR code if you want to download it now. Otherwise, the recaps Nathan sends should also have some links. And as a reminder, of course, this is totally free. So it's good information, you guys. So much more than what I went through today. All right. There's Q&A. And before I answer, I'm going to take a drink. All right, I'm not sure if you guys can see the questions, but I'll read them out loud. What are your suggestions for a 501c6 organization, not a Chamber of Commerce 501c3, to hold stakeholder events with limited staff and funding? Also, suggestions for seeking contributions. We're a county EDC. So a couple different things. I definitely recommend that you start with an online social media survey. Just because you can do that at no cost, and you can ask your partners and people who are connected to you to share it. Even if you have a small budget to boost it, you might be able to put $100 behind it and boost the survey to get information. Once you get some of those initial community responses, you can narrow it down and try to figure out if the pain points or concerns or lack of information is experienced across the board, or if it's narrowed down to certain categories of residents. The reason I recommend you do that first is because if you are going to plan an event, you may be able to narrow down who you need to have there. Otherwise, in regards for a stakeholder event with limited staff and funding, this is where your board really needs to step in to help you. So if you can't afford to bring in somebody like Golden Shovel or, a different consultant to run this for you, you're going to have to be able to host the stakeholder event yourself. You can usually get the space for free at one of your local education partners. That's a great place to start, where they can let you have the room to be able to have a presentation. But you're going to need people to help you run the event, and your board members are going to have to participate. If you say it's you and one other person, you don't really want to do that with a two-person team. And then you ask for suggestions seeking contributions. So when it comes to fundraising, I direct people back to RDG, a Convergent company. We don't do any direct fundraising at Golden Shovel, but I believe that they're absolutely the best in the industry, and we've seen them raise millions and millions for mutual clients and just for economic development throughout the country. And if you go to their website, you'll be able to see a lot of information on how they approach it. But I know their biggest thing that they always recommend is that, just like I said, you need to make the stories personal to how economic development impacts lives. If you're asking someone to give you money, a business, you need to be able to tie it back to how it's going to benefit their business. So if they invest in a program of work, how is that going to benefit them? If they're investing in your organization because you're tackling workforce and you're having job fairs, for example, and you're going to promote their company, well, that's one way it benefits them. If you're focused on attraction and trying to create jobs and bring in investment, how is that going to trickle down to their business? Are you trying to recruit who could be a customer of theirs or a supplier of theirs? Or is it simply that by creating these higher level jobs, people will have more money to spend at their business if they're a car dealership, for example? But again, RDG, a Convergent company, they help to build those campaigns, and they're a really good resource. All right. Any advice on how an economic developer can take earned credit within a community without stepping on the toes of elected officials or community stakeholders? Yes, absolutely. Okay. So whenever you're doing a ribbon cutting, obviously you guys know this, you need to have all of your elected officials there, and you need to be in the photo as well. Okay. And then you also need to get quotes from them. So then that way, when you're telling the story is, as an economic development organization, we were able to help recruit this company. This is why they came here. Quote from the CEO, right? And then you're able to bring in a quote from the mayor or the senator or whoever it was that is in your community politically, who may want to obviously also take credit for the project. And just by including them as a quote, you can absolutely say that you did it, but they're also getting some props for it and getting some credit for it. Also, when you're sharing information on social media, you want to tag them and say thank you to our elected officials for your support in this project, and just tag them by name. So it's your story, you're bringing them into it, you control the narrative, but you're quoting them, you're tagging them, you have a photo with them. And that usually is all you need to do for them to be happy. And obviously to also reshare what you're putting out on social media because they're quoted in it. All right. What are the AI platforms Golden Shovel recommends that work directly with EDAs to help create easy marketing campaigns? So that's a really good question. Obviously, we are a full service marketing and communication firm who does incorporate AI into our tools. But I will tell you that even with our expert professionals, there's nothing that we use that is AI without humans. AI is not at that point. So, for example, our digital ad specialist, this is all she does is run digital ads. She uses Google Performance Max very often to help with campaigns, which is an AI tool that's embedded into the Google platform. But it still takes a human to work with the AI. The AI is not working on its own. There's also tools that are built into things like Canva, where AI can help to generate images. But the AI graphics are still not to the level where they're as good as a graphic designer, especially when it comes to incorporating text. The text can often look distorted, or the faces can look distorted. So I recommend that you continue to view AI as something to help support what you're doing, but there is no AI that can replace humans completely at this point. All right. Judy, this was excellent. I wish more orgs and businesses would be proactive in their communication and community education. So do I, Judy. We love our economic development community and only want to see everyone succeed. And it's really discouraging when we see organizations suffer just because people don't know what they do. Because I believe in the hard work you guys do every day and the impact that you're making. And I think if more organizations would be willing to talk about it, we'd just have more buy-in for individual organizations and the community overall. All right, Angel, you're going to move forward with the surveys. Awesome. Yes, I can absolutely put RDG, a convergent company, in this link here. Hold on, guys. I'm going to go to their website. All right. See, this is where you guys, I told you earlier, I have Nathan normally doing this stuff for me. So I put it in the webinar chat. It said it went to host and panelists, so hopefully everybody can see it. I'm going to assume that you can, but if you can't for some reason, I will also read you guys out the URL. It's convergentnonprofit.com. Oh, and it looks like Victor put it in the chat too, just to back me up. Thank you, Victor. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. As always, Golden Shovel, our door is open. If you have more questions, if you want to brainstorm something with us, if you have an idea for how you want to communicate and you want to see if somebody else has done it successfully or not, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to chat. My email, bquinn@goldenshovelagency.com. Also, you can reach directly out to Laura Christie, and her email is up here on the screen as well. So thank you everybody for your time today. We really appreciate you spending an hour with us.